So once again, welcome. And I'll just take a few minutes here to introduce you to some of the people on the panel side of the webinar who will be here to help answer any questions that might arise. As I mentioned today, today's webinar is part of an NSF project, in particular a project that is a collaboration between Duke University and the University of Illinois, as well as a partnership with LatinXEd here in North Carolina. My name's John Dalbo, and I am a professor at Duke in mechanical engineering and material science and mathematics. I'd like to introduce you to my scientific collaborator, Professor Oscar Lopez-Paimes, who is a professor of civil and environmental engineering at the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign, and here to join us as well. We also have Dean Carmen Rawls from Duke's Pratt School of Engineering. Carmen is the Assistant Dean for Advising and Outreach in the Engineering School and the director of our summer research program focused on meeting the grand challenges in engineering. Most importantly, we have our student panel of Irene Hernandez, Nicholas Finan, Lourdes Reyes, and Rafael Zamora. I'll let them all introduce themselves more when the time comes. Okay, so before we get to our panel, I'm just going to take a few minutes to provide some perspective and information that I hope is helpful. I'll start by speaking a little to why you might be interested in doing summer research in STEM, as well as how you go about it. Then I'll provide a listing of some existing opportunities in the US. There are many programs for summer research experiences for undergraduates, such as this one here that I'm showing at Cal State. And so I'll also try to give you some insight into how to find these opportunities on your own. Then we'll launch into the panel discussion where the students will tell you about their own research experiences. Okay, so why should you be interested in doing summer research? Well, there are a lot of reasons. And to begin, I think it's helpful to emphasize that research is fundamentally different from classwork. Typically, classes are focused on understanding existing, well-established concepts, whereas research is focused on making new discoveries in the pursuit of answering a question or solving a problem. And the fact of the matter is that most undergraduates simply aren't introduced to research as part of a standard curriculum. So I just want to emphasize that if you're not a big fan of classes or maybe even school in general, even if you're an excellent student, don't write off research because it's genuinely a very different activity. Now, many of you attending today's webinar are currently students and perhaps thinking about seeking job opportunities in industry at some point. But what you may not be thinking about is the possibility of joining an industrial research lab. And so in this line, some experience with research is definitely helpful to understand whether or not that's a path you want to pursue in the future. Probably one of the main centers for research in the US, beyond our colleges and universities, are our national laboratories. These can be very exciting places to work with excellent high-paying jobs, and they all bring in hundreds of undergraduates every summer for internships and research projects. Many of those summer research students eventually become employees at the labs. Changing focus a little bit for those of you who might be interested in going to graduate school after college, or even after working in industry for some time, it's important to understand that graduate work in STEM goes hand in hand with research. So having performed some research as an undergraduate, having some exposure to that, will both help you make your resume more competitive for admission and fellowships, and give you some idea of what you might be doing as a graduate student. I really can't emphasize that point enough. These days, the top graduate programs in STEM are almost expecting applicants to have some experience doing research as undergraduates. Importantly, these opportunities are not assuming that you will have had any prior experience in research when you apply to them as an undergraduate. In fact, the vast majority of students we see apply to research programs for undergraduates don't have any experience in research whatsoever. That's a big reason why programs like the Amgen Scholars Program exist, for example, to provide you with that first experience. And as we indicated in the promotional materials for today's webinar, almost all of these programs compensate students for their efforts in the summer, and some even provide some housing support. So in summary, when it comes to thinking about doing summer research, maybe the question you should ask yourself isn't why, but why not? Okay. So at this point, you may be saying, sure, this sounds like it might be something I want to look at, but surely there's some catch. This has to be difficult to do, right? Well, I would like to suggest that it may be easier than you think. It starts with finding opportunities that excite you. In a moment here, I'll try to give you some guidance for how to do that, but I think once you start looking, you'll find that the hard part is actually narrowing down your choices to just a few. And once you have, you should check the deadlines and the requirements. Unfortunately, the deadlines can vary significantly, but most of these programs have application windows that open for a month or so, starting in the late fall to early spring. So if you're interested in doing research next summer, for example, in the summer of 2023, don't delay. Start looking for opportunities right after this webinar ends today. Many windows are opening for applications within the next couple of weeks and months. In terms of what's required or what they're expecting from you to apply, again, pay attention to what the individual program requests, but often they're only asking you to upload a copy of your resume and sometimes your transcripts. So once you understand the deadlines and requirements, you apply to the programs that interest you and hopefully get accepted to a few of them, at which point may come the hard part of making a choice. Now, if you don't get accepted to any programs the first time you apply, please don't give up. Sometimes acceptance isn't about your qualifications so much as a match based on interests. And some programs do place a lot of emphasis on admitting upper level students like juniors or seniors versus younger students who perhaps don't quite have the technical background from their classes just yet. And there is, of course, some luck involved too in getting selected. But for those of you who are accepted, moving forward from there is largely about getting ready, understanding when the program starts and ends, figuring out how to get there and where to stay, and etc. And that's where the program coordinators or points of contact at the particular research site will be very helpful to you. So don't hesitate to reach out to them and engage with them after you get accepted to obtain more information, to understand how to move to the site, and so on. Okay, so last slide here before we get to the panel. Let me tell you a little bit about some of the opportunities that are here in the US for summer research in STEM. Now, the very first place you may want to look, because you probably know it the best, is your home institution. This could be the college or university you're attending right now, or the one that's closest to home, for example. Many of these have NSF REU programs. REU here stands for Research Experiences for Undergraduates. And if you Google NSF REU and the name of the school, for example, if it has a program, it will probably show up for you right away from the search. For example, both Illinois and Duke have long-standing REU programs, and the links are here if you're interested. The photo on the right here is from our program at Duke, showing the student poster session that was held here on campus last summer. The next opportunity I want to highlight, because I don't think many students are aware of them, is the fourth item on the list here. and that is that almost all of the Department of Energy laboratories offer summer internship programs for undergraduates. Here is the link to the program at Los Alamos, for example. Okay, and there are a lot of DOE laboratories in the US. In fact, there are 17 of them. You may have only have heard about one or two of these, and so I just wanted to introduce you to the names and the locations of the others around the US. So that's definitely another avenue worth pursuing if you're interested in opportunities for summer research in the US. Okay, so I mentioned the Amgen Scholars Program on an earlier slide. Amgen is specific to science and biotechnology, and it has summer research programs for undergraduates at several different universities, ranging from Caltech to Stanford to Johns Hopkins and to Columbia, among many others. There's even one at the National Institutes of Health in Maryland. In the US, at least, the application deadline for this program is February 1, 2023. And last but not least, I'll mention the program at MIT's Haystack Observatory, which is a radio science and technology research center. It has run an REU program for many years, and the application window there opens in late November. To be clear, there are many more opportunities than those listed here, including international programs, and I encourage you to do some searching on your own. Okay. So before we get to the panel, I just like to open the floor to Carmen and Oscar. Carmen or Oscar, is there anything you'd like to add to what I've discussed so far?
Well, I was just going to mention that also if you go to the NSF website and look for NSF REU, they also contain a very big list of REU programs that are available and that they can become more familiar with and apply.
Thanks, Carmen.
Yeah, I'd like to, I guess, emphasize how great this is to find out your passion. At the end of the day, I guess all of us want to be happy, right? And the way to do it is, you find something you're passionate about and pursue that. And of course, no one tells you what you're passionate about. So that step is what, this program is very helpful with, get a lot of information as much as possible so that, with that information, you can make a well-informed decision and figure out whether you like something or you don't like it, right? So I think it's a very, very important aspect of this program.
Thank you, Oscar. Okay, so that brings us to today's panel. For those of you participating live in the webinar, please feel free to enter questions that you might have yourself right now, or as we get into the panel discussion, as you hear a response from one of the panelists, if you want to direct it to them in particular, please feel free to enter that as our discussion is going along, and we'll try to get to them during the session if possible. So to start off with, I'll ask each of the panelists to tell us a little bit about themselves, just in terms of where they went to school and what they're doing now. So maybe we can start with Irene. Irene?
Hi, everyone. My name is Irene Hernandez. I am a first-year PhD student here at Duke in the Mechanical Engineering and Material Science Department. And I went to Mercer University in Georgia for undergrad.
Great. Thanks, Irene. Raphael, would you like to go next?
Yeah, sure. My name is Raphael Zamora. I am a computer systems engineer at Lawrence Berkeley National Lab. I graduated with a bachelor's degree in computer science from Hood College in Frederick, Maryland. Right now, I'm working on applications of natural language processing to healthcare and scaling information retrieval systems.
Thanks, Raphael. Lourdes.
Hi, everyone. I'm Lourdes Reyes, and I went to Duke University for my undergrad. And I was part of the Duke REU program as well. And right now I'm at the University of Texas at Austin. I'm doing my master's degree, but I'm also doing research with surgical robotics.
Thanks, Lourdes. Nicholas?
Hi, everyone. My name is Nicholas Finan. I graduated from Purdue University in materials engineering, and now I'm a second-year PhD student here at Duke, working on the micromechanics of polymer nanocomposites, so advanced nanomaterials.
Thank you, Nicholas, and thank you all for being here today. So my first question, I was hoping that you might describe your first research experience or an experience that you had, when you were a college student or before. I know some of you were fortunate enough to do research actually when you were in high school. So why don't you if you could tell us a little bit about that, I think it would be great. So Iran, why don't we start with you again?
Okay. So my first research experience was actually in high school. I was able to do an internship at Georgia Tech because it was part of my requirements for my high school program. But I feel like it'll be more relevant to talk about the research that I did as an undergraduate student. And so I actually participated in an REU at IUPUI, which is Indiana University, Purdue University, Indianapolis. And so my program through the REU was a 10-week summer program. And I was there in Indianapolis, and my lab was a mechanical engineering lab, but they focused on, basically my research was helping on reinforcing carbon fiber composites through electrospinning and epoxy CNT solution, which sounds like a lot, but genuinely going into the program, I had no idea about that much about material science and what I would be doing. And so it was a really good program where throughout the 10 weeks, I learned a lot about the process that they did, that by the end, I was able to conduct experiments on my own and make a contribution to the research that they did there. I hope that's like a good intro to the research that I did there.
Yeah, thank you. It is, Iran. Raphael, how about you?
Yeah, sure. So my first experience with an internship was actually at Lawrence Berkeley. I did a program called the Visiting Faculty Program, where Lawrence Berkeley brings in students and faculty from smaller institutions who don't typically have the opportunity to conduct research at a DOE lab. I started my internship the summer right after graduating from undergrad, and it kind of feels like I've never really stopped. I'm going on 5 years now working at Lawrence Berkeley, and that first internship felt really, I guess, fast. It moves really fast, and the type of work that I did was somewhat unrelated to what I'm doing now, but it gave me a lot of good experience on conducting computer science and computational science research at a government lab, how to operate and work with the types of high performance computing systems that the different DOE labs support, and also just what does it mean to conduct good science, and what are good practices that you should follow while conducting research. I finished up my visiting faculty program internship, and then got some bridge funding to continue with a separate internship for another term. And then after that, I was able to get a staff position at the lab. Yeah, hopefully that's a pretty general description of my experience.
Yeah, that's perfect. Yeah, thanks, Raphael. Lourdes.
Yeah, so I had no research experience until my Duke REU experience. And the way that I came about that was I was interested in research because I had heard about it, and Duke has a lot of research opportunities for students. And so I talked to one of my professors about it. And basically that just led me into applying to the Duke REU. And I was able to get my first research experience. And that was with Dr. Wilkins Aquino and he's part of the mechanical engineering department. And the research that I did was on topology optimization, and it was a very computational research project, but I was still able to contribute to it, luckily, because I had a really great mentor. And sorry, I didn't describe topology optimization, but what it is, it's just about optimizing the material distribution within a certain domain, or with, let's say, if you have an object and you want to change the way that its material is distributed in order to have it achieve a certain behavior. And so I learned all about that in the summer after my sophomore year. And after that, I was able to actually continue with that research after that summer experience, which, just to emphasize what Dr. Doble said, yeah, definitely look into your home institution so that way you can continue your research if you're interested in it.
Great. Thank you.
Mhm.
Nicholas.
Yeah, so actually one of my first research experiences was with my home institution as well, right? So during my sophomore year at Purdue University, I ended up reaching out to a number of professors just sort of that I had taken classes with, or that I was expecting to take classes with, and I just asked around to see if there was, if any of them were looking for undergraduate researchers to participate on, I don't know, some smaller aspect of a larger project they were working on. And I got a few hits, and I ended up working with Carlos Martinez, who is a soft materials engineer at Purdue, working on synthesizing these micromechanical motors. They called them Janus particles. And that was a really interesting experience. It was sort of my first and last experience as a wet, in a wet laboratory. I now work in computational space doing materials like simulations. So it's very enlightening for me to get a lot of that experience and know right away that it was not quite what I was interested in. So it pushed me to seek other topics, which I'm very thankful for.
Great, Nicholas. But it sounds like you caught the research bug at least, right? Maybe not necessarily in wet materials, but just for doing research. Yeah, great. So I do have another of my own questions, but we did have one from a participant, and it's Benjamin, who asks, how do you find opportunities that quote unquote excite you if you have limited or no research experience? So Oscar, I think that was in response to your comments, so maybe you can elaborate a little bit on your views there.
Sure. I mean, from a pragmatic point of view, when I look back also, when I started to do research in my sophomore year, and it's because one of the classes that I took, the strength of materials at the time, I particularly enjoyed. So I think maybe the first step is, if there are, topics that you enjoy during classes, you may approach, the instructor and see if there are opportunities for research. So I think that'll be the first thing. And again, I cannot emphasize this enough. Sometimes it's actually difficult to figure out what excites you because you don't have the information, right? So hopefully, you chose a major that is good for you, and that will expose you to topics that may pull you further in. Yeah, that'll be part of part of the answer. The other part of it is the following. I think is connected to the last comment. There are essentially three things that you can explore. Are you happier? Are you more passionate about doing things with your hands? That has to do with experiments. Are you more passionate about, writing things in a piece of paper or in an iPad these days, I suppose? Are you more theoretically inclined? Or are you happier coding and solving problems, with a computer? I guess we can broadly, divide research into these three areas. So I guess, look at the classes you've taken, talk to your instructors, and try to figure out whether you prefer to do, things in a lab, theoretically, or to deal with more, from a computer, perspective. I had the same experience as Nicolas. My first experience, hardcore research, was experimental, and I enjoy it, but not as much as I enjoy doing theory and computation. But that's something that you figure out while you do it, right? So I think that's certainly helpful.
Thanks, Oscar. I think the other thing that bears emphasis is that, a lot of these programs, I know the one we have here at Duke, we actually have lots of different research projects that are listed every year. And so when you go to that site, you can read about the different opportunities in the projects. And I think students are actually able, right, Carmen, to apply to list which ones they view as being more interesting than others to them, right? But that's part of the discovery process, just reading about the projects that are out there and trying to see what catches your interest.
Yeah, right. Yeah, we try to provide that information because there's a limit on the amount you can figure out on your own. I would just say that in this is a journey. So to find your passion, you have to test it out. You have to try it out. So I would say, and there may be different topics that you feel that they're not even overlapping, that catch your interest at first. And the only way to figure out if that's the path for you is to start on it. So that's why I think the RU opportunities over the summer is such a great opportunity, because you can test it out for a particular period of time, just about 9-10 weeks. You'll be in studying in depth on a particular topic. You'll be learning a lot, becoming familiar with the lab, the atmosphere, get a glimpse of what graduate school could be, and determine, did this not only pique my interest, but really drew me more. Do I want to continue on this path? Or similar to the other panelists, in my case, there were different opportunities and job positions and research projects I got involved in during undergrad, during the summer, that I started exploring, and I realized I like this more. I want to learn more about this, and no, this is not right for me. So not even research, but during the summer, for example, as an undergrad, I was involved in working in industry for a summer, because they also provide with some opportunities for undergrads. And that was a great experience for me, because I thought that was my interest. And then in my home institution, I got involved with undergraduate research projects, like Lourdes mentioned, that is more extensive during the semester. And then you can see both worlds. And that's something as an advisor that I advise my students and encourage them. Even if you're not considering graduate school at this moment, it's so different an environment that I think everyone should be exposed to.
Great. Thank you, Carmen. So any of the panelists have anything else they'd like to say in response to that question? Raphael, I see you nodding.
Yeah, something I think I viewed my first internship experience as a way of seeing if I enjoy the process of research, even though like maybe I'm not focusing on the exact, details of the domain that I want to study. But one of the things that really speaks to the quality of internships, specifically at the Department of Energy, is that once you actually get to the lab, there's a moment where you kind of see the breadth or the diversity of different topics that you could, pursue in the future. There's also a lot of cross-pollination between the other interns that are also in the same program or sister programs at the lab. You get to talk not just to people in computer science or computational research, but you get to talk to the people in material science. You get to talk to the people studying a chemistry domain, and you also get the opportunity to be part of any of the talks or any of the workshops that the lab provides. There's always something on the schedule, and that's a perfect time to really get a depth first search on the different topics that you want to do.
Great. Thanks, Raphael. Aran, I don't know you. I know you had a lot of different research experiences. So as an undergraduate, and I wonder if you might talk a little bit to that, because it seems like as though you sort of took some time and opportunity to look at lots of different things, right, before finding your path.
Yeah, absolutely. I was going to actually add to the point, but yeah, so when I started, I had only worked in wet labs, which I feel like is a bit of an unfortunate trend that is going on here. But yeah, during a summer at IUPUI, I was also in a wet lab, and it kind of solidified that it wasn't exactly what I wanted to do, even though I really enjoyed the experience. But I was going to add to not be scared to try different opportunities. So I had done research before optimizing liquid piston heat engines. So it was like a very hands-on approach of like making a design and actually cutting it out in, you know, a machine shop. Or, you know, over the summer we made the composites. And so it was like a very technical lab where you had to, you know, wear a mask and make sure you didn't touch anything that you weren't supposed to. And so those kind of experiences kind of shaped the topics that I was interested in, but also like the process of research that I was interested in doing. And from my experience, I've applied to a couple of different REU programs. And so don't be scared to try it for one summer and go to a lab where maybe you don't have a lot of experience, because that'll help you with the next year where you can apply. The NSF REU programs have an extensive list of programs, and they vary by university as well. So if there's a particular university that you're interested in, you could look at that one first and then look at the projects that they offer. And even if you're fortunate enough to get multiple acceptances, then you can speak to the professors that are offering you a spot and see what kind of research you'll be doing. So you have a better idea to choose. But I said that overall, no experience that I've had hasn't been worth it. They've all added to the point where I am today, and to the path that I've decided to take with a more computational approach, and, you know, the topics that I've decided to do. But every experience has been valuable, even if it hasn't led to exactly where, if it hasn't been the research that I've continued to conduct.
Great, thank you. So at this time, I'd like to take another question. We have an anonymous question that came in that reads, what else do REUs look at if our home institution is very small or doesn't offer as many opportunities for research? And I'll just take that to start off with. You know, I think that even though you may be at a small college or university, they may not have a program like what you find at Duke or at Illinois, where there's a dedicated website for REU experiences, but there may still be research opportunities at your home institution. And so there, I think really, you know, I would just encourage you to speak to your instructors, you know, whether it's a class that you particularly liked or a faculty member that you really made a connection with. Reach out to them and talk to them to try to see whether or not they have some opportunities for undergraduates to work in their lab. You know, it may not be in the summer, it might be during the semester, but typically those do exist even at small institutions, right? So I think that's a place to start. You know, if you're at one of these smaller colleges or universities, and then if you don't find anything, I would just encourage you to look at what's outside, right? Like we mentioned, some of the opportunities at other institutions or at the national labs, or perhaps there's a larger institution that's close to where you live. That you could easily drive to and get to and see what's going on there. Okay. Any other comments to that question or responses?
Yes, I would say that at least in our program and in many others, no previous experience required. We really are looking for interest. So, and one of the questions that we include in our application is why you're interested in this research in particular, or in this top 3. So you can learn a lot on your own. There are many resources that are available. So I would say to explore. But beyond that, you know, what are we looking for? They'll be looking at definitely your coursework and your interest. And the number of, really the most important, more important, I would say, is just the interest and, you know, potential passion for research. But just interest for now, without previous experience, that's more than plenty.
Thank you, Carmen. Any other responses to that? So I'll just say on my side as well. So I was an undergraduate at the University of New Hampshire, and there wasn't any large REU program there or anything. And so my first opportunity came about from speaking exactly to the case I discussed earlier, where I happened to have a class that I really enjoyed and an instructor that I got along with. He happened to be one of the younger faculty members, probably not a coincidence, and he had recently moved there. And so he was really looking to get his research program off to a good start. And so I ended up talking to him and doing research in the summer after my junior year there. And that's still, it happens to be the field that I still work in. So I guess I was lucky there in terms of, you know, finding that first opportunity being something that really excited me and turned out that, you know, I was really interested in pursuing going forward. Okay. Okay, so I wonder, one of the things I'm
have
curious.
something.
Oh, go ahead. Yeah, Lourdes, please.
Just one more thing, and I don't know if Nick had anything more to say, but the the reason why I said it was good is because that was my experience, and for me, doing the RU at Duke was beneficial to me, but I think it's also fine to do it at another institution as well. And so, for example, when I did the RU, I think I was maybe the only, or there might have been one other Duke student there, and the rest were from other institutions. And I know they did really well. And Nick was actually in the same program as at the time that I was in it. So yeah, and now I think he's at Duke now. So it was definitely really good for him.
Yeah,
And
I can comment
Nicholas,
about
go
that
ahead.
as well.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, again, I cannot stress this enough. Do not be shy exploring a lot of these new opportunities, especially when they're at universities that you're unfamiliar with, right? Most of these programs, especially the sort of closed loop summer experiences, will have quite a lot of support for students, especially, room and board, sometimes even travel is usually included in these programs. So you shouldn't feel like you're limited by your location. And it's I don't know, it's just like I found it was an excellent opportunity to learn more about all these different universities. I had experiences here at Duke, which obviously led me to my current position and delving deeper there. But I also had other experiences with my home university and others that I haven't even mentioned today. So I think it's very important that you just go out there and if you have, I guess, if you have the time for it, it's really, there's no downside that I've seen.
Thanks, Nicholas. Okay, so those are great questions coming from our attendees. So please keep them coming. Don't be shy. We'll get to as many of them as we can. So I was wondering, for the student panelists, if you could talk a little bit about, something that happened during a research experience that you had during the summer that was really sort of an aha moment, or something that you really remember as being kind of important for changing the way that you viewed things. Just something memorable that you think is worth sharing with the group. So Raphael, we want to take that one?
Yeah, sure. So I think one of the things that I really valued from my experience at the lab is seeing that research isn't just about like all the technical work that you do, but also about communicating science and all that comes with that. One of the experiences that I had, for example, I got the opportunity to go present some of my work on applying machine learning to healthcare at a conference in London. The conference is a computational bioinformatics. And when I get there, I have to do a 10 minutes talk in front of in the conference hall. And that was kind of the biggest presentation that I've done up till then. Seeing a couple of other presentations before my own, I kind of realized that like it was not up to par with how I wanted to like present the quality of my work. And so I kind of like spent the whole night right before my time slot fine-tuning it and polishing it up, and it was honestly the most stressful night of my life. But after that, and after being able to communicate with this and people reaching out to talk more about my project afterwards, I realized that like this was probably one of the best opportunities and something that's really going to impact how I view research further down in my career.
Awesome. Thanks, Raphael. Any of the other panelists want, was there an aha moment or something that was particularly memorable? Nicholas?
Yeah, so this is one of my later experiences. I was doing a summer program actually back at my home university at Purdue. And as part of that program, they actually offered these sort of weekly seminars in which they'd have some pretty big name speakers come in and present their research, or sometimes they do sort of professional development talks, or every week it was slightly different. And I honestly had no idea that was even part of the program when I had signed up for it. But now that I like look back on that, I think that might have been the most valuable part of the whole, or one of the most valuable parts of the whole program, is that it really just sort of, I don't know, offered an insight into a lot of graduate research and upper level research. Just like every week, I learned a new thing, and it's actually very similar to what my life is now, like now as a graduate student. I like to keep on top of things and keep in touch with a lot of seminars and listen to people speak on their work, and that's a really, really good habit to get into as early as you can. So I think that was a really, I don't know if it was like world shaking, but it was super valuable and surprising.
Thanks, Nicholas. Aran or Lourdes? Aran, go ahead.
Yeah, I can add one as well. I think one that was really nice was when I was at IUPUI, I was still trying to decide if grad school was something that I wanted to do later. And I feel like one of the biggest hangups that I had was, not knowing enough about the research and it kind of all being on my shoulders and, not knowing if I was going to be able to handle, the things that I was expected to do. But I remember one day towards the end of the program, kind of touching on what Lourdes said about there being like a lot of students in the program. In my lab, there was another student that was also in the REU program. And there were multiple people in the lab that were working on this kind of the same project, just in different aspects of it. And we all kind of had to stay really late one night as a part of being a wet lab, and the fact that we started an experiment a bit late. And so we had to wait until it was finished. But there was just a lot of collaboration throughout the process. We had to make these samples for a presentation that was going to be the following week. And kind of like Raphael said, it was very stressful, but it was also so nice to be able to share that within the lab and all of us kind of help each other out. And it was a moment where I was kind of just, I saw like how important collaboration within your lab is and the support system that you actually have in grad school. And I've experienced that within my first month here as well. I've gotten so much support from the people in my lab. And so that was a really nice moment to just kind of see like that you're also not alone, even though you might be the one primarily working on your research. There's a lot of support, and it's not an alienating space to be in. There really is a community for that.
Great. Thanks, Aran. Lourdes, was there something you wanted to say? Go ahead.
Yeah, not too much, but I think I was pretty lucky because I enjoyed research the whole time that since I had gotten involved. And I think I never really had an aha moment, but when I went to graduate school, I will say that it wasn't a hard transition for me. And so I think that was when I kind of looked back, and I was really appreciative of my experience, my undergraduate experience in research.
Great, thank you. I will say I should have mentioned, and Aran, you made me think of this, I think a big change as well from classwork to research is just how collaborative research tends to be, right? And many times, not always, but many times you're part of a team. And, there's an interaction with other people in the lab, with your advisor, right? And sometimes people outside of the institution as well. And I think that's a real difference that you see from, classwork to research in a lot of instances. So we did get another question, a couple others I'll try to get to here. An important one, I think, from Carmen, one of our participants. How was the application process? Where did you find the programs, and do you have any tips? So who wants to take that? Yeah, Carmen, go ahead.
Well, our application is on our website. So if the website that Professor Doble provided early on, you can click on there and there's all the information for our particular program. Similarly, I think Google is great to finding other opportunities and like I said, the NSF website. But that's in our case, everything would be online mostly. But I would let the other panelists that have more experience.
Yeah, let's see. Who else? Aran, you want to say something? Go ahead.
Yeah, I can add something. I can say that applications can also vary by like the place in the program that you're applying to. So some of them might ask for a little more information than other ones, maybe more statements or more like short answer questions. I would say that just like as a tip with applying, it's important to be like direct in like what you're interested in, to really show that this research interests me because of this, or I have experience in this and that's why I'm interested in this, and just really try to make links of why you would be a good candidate for the research that they're doing. And I would say to like give yourself enough time as well to apply to all of them. Like it was mentioned earlier, the different programs have different deadlines, and so you might have some that are not till March, and so they just give themselves a month to choose before the summer, and then some of them are in December because they, you know, they have an interview process afterwards. So just really give yourself time and have professors. So for example, I went to a smaller university as well, and I kind of had a similar experience where I had a class in thermodynamics that I really enjoyed, and I reached out to that professor, and he wasn't doing very much research, but he was a huge help in my application process to REUs. He reviewed my statements at times and really gave me advice of how to apply. So also make those connections in your university if you're able to, and get that support that way.
Great. I'll just say, you know, on the faculty side of things, really, you know, what I hope is maybe obvious, right? In the sense that, you know, typically a lot of where you have control as an applicant are, you know, the things that you include in your resume, right? And so if you're applying to a project that has a computational bent to it, make sure you include, you know, a listing of some of your, you know, computational abilities, right? With the programming language that you're familiar with. Those additional kind of details can be really important when we're trying to make a match with a particular project and a student. Okay. Anyone else want to comment on that? Yeah, go ahead, Nicholas.
Yeah, I was just going to say, as far as sort of advice goes for applying, oftentimes for these RU experiences, they don't tell you exactly who's like what positions are on offer, but sometimes they do. And if they list, you know, particular projects or particular researchers, I mean, you can just look them up on, I highly recommend that you look them up on Google Scholar or just Google in general. Maybe look to see if they have any recent papers. Do just a brief amount of digging so that when you reach out to them, you can ask them interesting questions, right? Like about work that they're working on, or just any questions you even have, right? It's the perfect opportunity to get a foot in the door, and it really shows initiative. And I think that's, I don't know, initiative, interest, right? Those are some of the things that really make your application shine, especially if you don't have a whole lot of prior background on the subject.
Great, perfect, thank you. Okay, so we had another question that came in from Broden, one of our participants. And so this one really is sort of about, you know, internships, which I think are probably in industry versus, you know, some research in academia or one of the labs. So, you know, I know maybe only a few of you have had both experiences, right? But the question is sort of, you know, understanding which came first and whether or not you think that prior experience may have improved your chances to get an internship or vice versa. So Iran, I know you've had a lot of different experiences, so maybe you could take that one.
Yeah, absolutely. So the one industry experience that I had was for the summer of 2020. So I was actually going to do another REU here at Duke, but it got canceled because of COVID. So I was able to work as a mechanical engineering intern at a paper company, actually, which was pretty cool. And I worked on kind of more on the smaller R&D side. And so that kind of helped shape that ultimately I do want to go into R&D. It's kind of been like a bit of a dichotomy of like, I want to go into grad school and I'm doing my PhD program, but ultimately I know that I want to go back into industry. And so it was really good to have that experience as well, to see that I really enjoyed the process of R&D that we did at the company, and kind of the opportunities that we had as part of like the mechanical engineering team, and kind of deciding a lot of things that the company was going to do in regards to innovation. And so that was really fun as well. There was a lot of like opportunity for independent research in that side as well. And so yeah, so I enjoyed having that experience. So I think it's really good to have both, even if you're maybe not convinced that you want to do grad school, maybe try for a summer or research experience and see if it convinces you and you like it as well.
Obviously, it's hard for you to say because you didn't review your own applications, Iran, but do you think some of your prior experiences in research made you more competitive for that industrial research opportunity?
I think it might have. I think I had experience with the software that we were using at the paper company, which I had gained through research experiences. I don't know if maybe just application wise, it made me more competitive, but I know that it definitely helped. While I was at this company, I kind of had the experience of taking a bit of initiative and, okay, if this project needs to get done, maybe these are like the primary steps, do a sort of literature review of what needed to be done, and all of those skills I gained through various research experiences. So it definitely helped as well.
Great, thanks. Any of the other panelists want to comment on this one?
Maybe I can add something.
Yeah, go ahead, Oscar.
I often have meetings with students here at Illinois. I'm in the civil engineering department, and there are tons of internships with companies that make high rises or cool structures. So especially in Chicago, and I think there is a clear. This helps a lot whether you're to figure out your passion, right? Last week I had one of these meetings, and so the student is a very good student in our program, but clearly I think now she has learned through internships that she prefers to do the applied part of the work, right? So this notion of research has to do with you are curious about how the world works. You're more interested in fundamentals than maybe using the fundamentals to create something, or the opposite, right? In this case, the internship will allow you to see that what makes you happier is to, I don't know, there was no building, now there is a building, right? Maybe you don't know as much about the fundamentals, but that doesn't make you happy. So I think there's a difference between internships and research experience, and I think it's great to explore both, because then that will give you a pretty good idea of really what you enjoy more, right? So yeah.
Thanks, Oscar. I'll just say in my own experience. So the project that I was involved with in the summer at the University of New Hampshire was actually a research project that was sponsored by IBM, and so as part of that, during the summer, we actually traveled to IBM's Industrial Research Lab in TJ Watson in New York. And so there I saw really sort of both parts of the story, right? So the academic side of the research, but also is really great to interact with people at IBM at TJ Watson and see how what we were doing in the university setting was going to transfer to what they were actually interested in, as a very large company with a pretty significant research arm. So I think we only have a couple of minutes left. Maybe the panelists, any last words, anything that you'd really like that we didn't touch on today that you really think, some of the students, it's helpful for them to hear or to know?
I can add something really quick that I was going to say.
Yeah.
If for example, that you know that you want to go into grad school or are considering it, doing experiences over the summer at different institutions also gives you a good idea of different styles of guidance from different PIs and seeing different styles of labs. And so that can also really help you when you choose a lab, when you attend graduate school. So you can get the experience of how you work better, whether a more hands-on approach or hands-off approach, that those experiences really shape and help you decide like where you want to go as well. So they're really invaluable, I would say.
Great. Anyone else?
Yeah, 100% agree with that. I also want to just point out the scale of a research lab can also be very important, right? So getting a lot of experiences with sort of smaller, tight-knit groups versus larger, sprawling groups, super helpful early on.
Thanks. Raphael, I know, doing work at a lab is really very different, right? So, obviously you haven't had too many experiences, but I wonder if you might comment on some of the differences there that you think are important and would be helpful for students to know about.
Yeah. I think one of the things that made my particular experience different is that it did require a good bit of engineering. And so, although many of the research opportunities that you might like to focus on are, researching fundamentals or applications, at a certain point, you're the person building the tools to do the research. And especially if you're doing things that are considered state of the art or on the edge of research, it's up to you really to work with your team and build those tools that the later iterations of interns will be using to build on top of your work. I think that one of the valuable things about being in a department of energy laboratory is that you can see how all the pieces kind of add up together into a larger whole.
Great, thanks. Lourdes, anything you'd like to share? Any last comments?
Yeah, I just want to reiterate what Dean Rawls said, that this is a journey, and it's a great thing that you guys are here already. So if you find interest in any of the projects that you look at, just go for it. Yeah, and yeah, you got it.
Okay, great. Thanks. Oscar, Carmen, any final thoughts?
I was just gonna echo Nicola's sentiment of don't be shy. Don't be shy. Reach out. If you're interested in our program, let us know. Ask us questions. We are happy to help and provide you opportunities. I'll speak beyond I can just only speak for my program, but I'm sure all the other programs the same. We're looking for talent and for students who would like to get involved in research.
Great, thanks. Okay, well, to conclude, thank you so much. Thank you to all of our panelists for an excellent discussion, and thank you to everyone who participated in the webinar today, whether you were registered for the Zoom session or if you were just joining us by the Facebook stream, for some of the great questions and the feedback. As I mentioned, we will be posting a recorded version of today's presentation to Facebook and YouTube. So if you happen to miss a link or two during the webinar, be on the lookout for that. And thank you finally to LatinXEd for hosting today's webinar and helping us coordinate the event. In particular, Caro Bono, the person behind the scenes here that's helped us coordinate all of this. Thank you for your professionalism and all of your enthusiasm and energy. So thank you all. Have a great day. And if you're an undergraduate and you decide to pursue research in the summer, drop us a line and let us know how it went. Goodbye now.